Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. First on the agenda is recognition of visitors. And we have some visitors here.
Roll call.
We have roll call first, actually.
Brian, you want to do roll
Roll
call?
call. Yeah.
Okay.
Elton,
First roll call. Here.
Pritchard,
Here.
Teben,
Here.
Nystrom,
Here.
Hallhouse.
Here. Sorry, we'll call it stuff on my agenda. Recognition of visitors.
We have a Doors Award that we need to recognize a staff member, and I'm going to let Mr. Byam come on up and introduce our Doors Award winner. Perfect.
We had a nomination at the high school for our Doors Award this month. We nominated Sarah Madsen. Sarah Madsen's actually our director of online learning or distance learning. Brian Bloom, Lindsay Hyman, Megan McIntyre, and Christina Greenfield nominated Sarah. Sarah's been with us a couple of years. One of the things that we've noticed most about Sarah is just the initiative that she takes to the point where she deals a lot with some students that have failed. She makes a lot of contact with the students, makes a lot of contacts with parents, and has helped kind of build our online strategies throughout the last couple of years and making sure that we're getting our credits back when a student fails. But on top of that, when you look at the Doors Award actually talks about going above and beyond. Last year, one of the things, we had a secretary that actually left us right before our career fair. And Sarah took the initiative of kind of grabbing the bull by the horns and putting our career fair, and it didn't skip a beat. It actually grew in size. And one of the things that we really appreciate with her is her dedication. She's always a team player. She always has a great attitude and a great work ethic. She's here every day and doing what is needed to make sure that we run really well when it comes to not only online, but anything and everything above that also. One of the things that Sarah has also done is she's partnering a lot with our EDGE program and helping facilitate the apprenticeship program. And so that's just another thing that she's really helped us grow. And so with that, we'd like to introduce Sarah.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for all you're doing for our district and for our high school students. Okay, now, other recognition of visitors.
We were actually going to do it during the agenda item. I believe that we're here for the agenda item.
Yeah, but we usually have the visitors
Okay.
first.
Okay.
Okay, visitors. What do you want? Yeah.
I just wanted to come, and I know you guys today are going to talk about prom and whether to hold prom or not hold prom.
Please introduce yourself.
Oh, yeah. I'm Jen Peter. I have a daughter, Reagan, who is a senior at Boone High School. Anyway, so yes, want to speak in favor of hosting a prom for our students. In looking at the area, the communities around us, most of those other communities have decided to hold prom. And I think so far this year, our administration has done a phenomenal job of mitigating off the pandemic and doing what they can to make things safe for our kids. And so I think we need to really trust that they're going to continue to do that with hosting a prom. I also am concerned that if we don't host it, that parents will. And if parents host it, then we have no control anymore of how that happens, the safety of it. I've heard stories about parents bringing coolers of beer with them to prom. Like, that's not how I want prom to be. And then really just thinking these kids have missed a lot. for their senior year. They didn't have a junior prom. You know, they haven't had a normal year this year in any way, shape, or form. This is not the senior year any of them wanted. And I think if we don't let them have a prom, we're really doing them a disservice. We talked a lot about the mental health of our kids and how important it is for them to be in school for their mental health. I think that this is part of what contributes to that. And so I think it's important for us to do that for our kids. So please consider that when you're having that conversation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, does anyone else would like to talk now about any subject that wants to go into the 3.0 model board policy? Anyone else like to make any comments or anything? Now it's time. Okay, do we have anyone online who wants to make any comments? Okay, so we're gonna move on to consideration of the agenda.
So I would just recommend that we move 3.10 to the spot where 3.01 was, just so that we could take action on that particular item earlier in the meeting than planned.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the agenda with the modification of moving 3.10 up to 3.01.
Is there a second? It's been moved by Mr. Pritchard, seconded by Ms. Stevens to approve the agenda as printed, except moving item 3.10 up to the first item in front of 3.01. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? I thought two young ladies were going to get a good civics lesson having to listen to the entire board meeting. And the kids online that were hoping for their prom, but listening to that. Okay. Hearing from delegations. Okay. And now routine business.
I move to accept the routine business of listed except for $720 mitigation on current bill.
Is there a second? Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent, routine business consent calendar with the extraction of the Pritchard bill. Any discussion on any items that any board members want to talk about anything else? Okay, hearing no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, now let's move up to then.
I'll move to approve the Pritchard Brothers bill of $728.
Second.
Move to approve the Pritchard bill, Mr. Elfon, and seconded by Mr. Stevens. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes unanimously. We want abstention from Mr. Pritchard. Okay. Now,
Mr. Byam is going to present to board members how we as a district could proceed moving forward with prom. There are several mitigation strategies that they have worked out at the high school level, so I'm going to let him speak to what those mitigation strategies will be. And it is worth noting that our other conference schools are also moving forward with the concept of prom as well.
I've been working with our sponsors, some of our students, just kind of working through the concept of what a prom would look like. I've also contacted Boone County Health to make sure what mitigation strategies we would we'd be putting in place. Right now, obviously, there's a lot of changes going on. The CDC opened up a lot of different things today. So one of my recommendations is I'll explain kind of what our thoughts are, but I kind of also want to see what happens in the next month or so, and also possibly bring it back in April to revisit it. But a lot of the things that we're talking about right now is primarily focusing in on our junior and senior prom like we typically do. We're contemplating limiting guests only to BHS students with the possibility of no outside guests, but that also can change when it comes to the CDC guidelines and kind of what's going on nationally with that. I truly believe that masks should be required at our prom, and that's actually the same that is being said for all of the Raccoon River Conference schools. I threw out the idea of the possibility of hosting prom outside in a tent with some heaters and things like that, weather permitting. But one thing that we did was we also sent out a survey to our students. Our numbers would drastically go down if we were outside. And so we've had discussions about, how do we socially distance within our gymnasium? One of the pieces that we've talked about is we have our giant air purification systems that we've been using all year, and those mitigation strategies have been pretty successful. We can also open up the ventilation system within the gym and really get a really nice airflow. So opening that system up, as well as having our 2,500 to 3,000 square foot air purification systems in the gym prior to anything that was going on. One of the things that many of the schools are also doing are temperature checks at the door, so we can do that. We can build in breaks, rotating kind of a break schedule if we need to. We can shorten the time frame a little bit, limit the tickets to just the BHS students or just their one guest, kind of eliminating whether or not we're going to have outside guests is kind of still up in the air, like I mentioned earlier. One of the things that we do a lot of is pre-packaging food, or we usually do some sort of goodie or whatever, drinks, things like that, rather than giving individuals, like they can just come and grab it, maybe doing pre-packaged stuff. Talking to the Booster Club, they've done a really good job with that during this year. Looking at some different reward type things, a prom gift, just because there's been so much different issues that we've had. They didn't have a homecoming, they didn't have a winter formal, so maybe some sort of memento that we can do. We can do that out of our rewards account for the Booster Club. Hand sanitizer available in multiple locations, and then making sure that our chaperones are very vigilant. One of the things that I would propose also is it's kind of a one and done rule. Like if their masks need to be up, if we see, and I can have that conversation with the students right away and just say, if your masks are down or they're off, then we're going to ask you kindly to leave. I just think that if we take those precautions, I think we can do a good job with that. Also, with our prom, we do our Grand March. What we've talked about is live streaming the Grand March with only 2 senior guests only. Talking about partnering with a photographer in town, maybe give a free photo so that they can have some sort of memento, because we can't have as many parents or family members there. Usually it's a complete full house, so it would be tight. So we wanted to limit that rather than just juniors and seniors, and they can come. Just the seniors only, parents would be there. We seat a little over 400 in our auditorium, so we should be able to accomplish that with parents. We'll go through our court first, our student council, and the rest of the student body. We can literally social distance. We usually line up over here. I can socially distance them all the way down this hallway, all the way to the end, and then up the stairs if I have to, and then come back down freshman hallway. So we can tape off spots and make sure that everything's socially distanced in terms of our lineup. After the march, Juniors would come into the main commons, seniors would come into the activities commons. Usually we have some large gatherings there, so we want to try to split them up. We would allow seniors to go in first. Typically, we have some sort of parent, like a guest. They can go in and do we do a dad dance or something like that. With the seniors, we could allow them to go in first. I think my main goal is to make sure that they feel special. They lost their prom last year. I really don't want them to lose another one. And then seniors will be allowed to do that first dance. So those are kind of the mitigation and kind of the plan right now. But like I said, I think with things that are constantly changing and evolving, I think that's something that I'd also recommend revisiting in April.
What date is it?
May 1st.
Questions from board members?
Chris, what are other schools in our district doing as far as allowing outside of the school company, at this point yet?
It's a mixed bag, honestly. The mitigation strategies, I think we've gone a little bit above and beyond. I know some have they talked about breaks, a couple have talked about no slow dances. They're hanging out together anyway. Just being honest. They have breaks built in, mask wearing. Gilbert has talked about putting tape blocks in. I mean, I've even thrown out that idea where, maybe we have our seniors as a group sign up and we just say, you have 10 people to this space and we're going to limit it there and spread it out throughout the gym. I mean, there's so many different ways that we can spread it out and just get kids spread out throughout the whole gym. But everything's been on the table for all the other schools. We've been talking about it now since the beginning of January, and we're constantly getting messages back and forth. What are you doing? What's your board doing? Things like that. Kind of a mixed bag. Yeah.
Other questions?
Have you done any sort of a survey with the students to find out how many would have an outside guest?
I don't know if that was on the survey or not.
If there's only 3 people.
I can tell you that of the senior class, we probably have around 40 that work in areas that could possibly get a vaccination. That was something that we tried to gather a little bit of information without straight asking them. I actually went to a classroom today and I was kind of talking about this, and the student said that she got her vaccination already. So I found that interesting. Let me make sure.
Problem with the vaccination is they have to be age 18.
Yeah.
And in order to get anything, they're doing that, they're all learning, work someplace. Where they have to get Pfizer goes down to age 16. So that's a little bit of a problem.
So we've had 175 responses. We talked about, would you come to attend a prom inside? 90% said yes. If we were having a prom outside, would you attend? 79% said yes. We asked about mitigation strategies and would they follow the mitigation strategies of mask wearing and things like that. 94% said yes. Demographics, 26% of our students are above the age of 18. And then 25 grocery store, convenience store, 9, nursing home, 9. But we don't know whether or not they would be up for it or not. So no, we did not ask them. But we could do that before April. Absolutely.
Yes, but there's too many coming down or whatever.
I think when you can choose those right now, they are not on any employment list that they can get the vaccine. They're the healthcare industry right now.
Sure.
When that's going to change, I'm not sure.
Right. Well, and the other thing that we could do is we could limit it to only outside guests of seniors. Juniors can't bring an outside guest too. that would lower our outside guest numbers too, if it becomes too big or unmanageable.
But if it's in the morning.
Yeah, I,
You talk to them.
right. Well, and yeah, I would say that we probably have anywhere from 30 to 40% might be outside guests. Yeah. So, but I'd be curious to find out where we're at with that number. So definitely can ask that question.
Okay, I will put on my other half now for 30 seconds.
Okay.
And speak from the Director of Public Health standpoint. I do appreciate a lot of the measures, and they're all great. The one measure I'm concerned about is having a senior parent viewing live in the auditorium. So your auditorium seats 400. Well, let's talk realistically. In order to maintain 6-foot variance, they have to at least cut that number in half.
Sure.
To 200 or less. The nice part about it is we got Boom TV, we got photos all over, so a little bit hesitant on the senior parent thing. I know it's not a whole lot to figure. 120 senior parents come, there's 240. 120 kids come, 240. So I'd be careful about that.
Sure.
And especially in this day and age.
Sure.
That said, right now, if you look at our positivity rate for 7 days, 14 days, whatever, 5% or less, not only in the district, statewide, in fact, the district is even lower than that. I got no problems with, as opposed to some type of problem. I think Mr. Peter made some good points as far as having other parents hosting one anyway and not having a bunch of control. That said, there are some projections that are saying that come April, we're going to have a second surge. If that happens, in April 20th, we got 14, 15, 16% positivity rate. I don't want a lot of parents upset at the Board of Health in the school district when we say we can't do this, and all the parents come say, but I bought my daughter her $600 dress, I got this, I got $1,200 invested in prom. I don't want people upset with us, saying, well, you guys said in March, you're gonna have no matter what. But that's the assumptions can be made. So right now, if the numbers today are the numbers April 30th, the same as today, I got no problems with it. I think you're doing some great things, doing what you're doing. Except make a modification for the senior parents as far as the photo opportunity. I think it's a great idea. Public health.
Is there a percentage that you think we should be at or below to make sure that we're going with it or not going with it?
I usually put a percentage, but I'm going to start getting a little bit nervous at 10%.
Okay.
For statewide, 10% county statewide.
Sure.
Or for district, it's up to you. You gotta remember, the only group we had to put, the only building we had to cut back and
This
go online was this one. So these kids, I'm hoping that they learn a lesson from that, and we don't have a repeat. Because if we do have a repeat, then what is 4 weeks from then?
after prom, 4 weeks
Yes.
after prom, graduation.
Graduation.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, they may be getting a whole lot about male home diplomas. And the kids, they don't care about prom, but their family is all sad about having everyone coming together and have a big celebration because their child is graduating, the first and second one in the high school class family is graduating. The graduation ceremony gets blown up because the other half, some of the other kids, were so desperate to have prom, they didn't care about graduation. You gotta understand we're serving both.
Right. I think that's also the other discussion that we need to have in terms of graduation. You know, is it something that we continue to do the outside graduation like we did last year, looking at some of those type of things? So that's kind of next on the docket too to start looking at. I can bring that back in April also.
I think it's good. I mean, public health standpoint right now, I look at what we do in the gymnasium every year. Yeah, you remember numbers as well as they are right now.
That's tight.
That's tied in there. We probably have to look at things straightly. Or if we do it on the football field, we can open it up more than what we had last spring. We put a few more people in the stands because there's gonna be so much air movement there and everything. And hopefully have a great percentage of the population in the county vaccinated. But, doing something big out on the football field. Personally, from a public health standpoint, I think we'd be better off looking at that if we get the weather half the cooperating. Last summer, we had an ideal.
It worked out perfectly.
Except for wind.
Right.
I think everybody wants to kick that off. Maybe if you could do this, I know you do it. Encourage them as we go into spring break, that time to be cautious in preparation. I mean, that's kind of when it blow up, I think.
Absolutely.
We can do after spring break to protect their prom. So we're all really hoping that they can't have prom.
Yeah.
Now, the prom's already on the schedule right now, okay?
Yeah, it's the same time that it would be typically in terms of on the calendar. Yes.
So the question is, it's an action item, I don't know if we need a motion right now. Because it's already on the calendar.
Right.
So therefore,
We go forward with the regular calendar, and I bring back the mitigation strategies and what has changed between then and now. We got the surprise today about with the CDC and the mask and stuff.
it's surprised all of us.
I'm sure it
It's 10 o'clock this morning on there.
Yeah.
There's been some surprise in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I guess I would, follow through, but make sure we have a recommendation,
Yep.
do it visually, by on the Google, whatever.
Sure.
And then again, we discuss whether it's depending on the numbers you can get.
Sure.
And that things could change depending.
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay, sounds good.
I'd like to make a simple comment. I understand that public comments are closed, but I would like to make a comment nonetheless.
There's only one person here a little while.
I believe that if you're truly concerned about public health, you will commit to having a prom now. There's going to be a prom in this town, whether the school hosts it or not. If the school does not host it, then you have no control over how it's operated. The parents will put together a prom and will run a prom with or without the school. If you're truly genuinely concerned about the health of the community, the best interest of the community is to host a prom where it can be controlled and mitigated and managed. That's my 2 cents.
So we have, it's on the calendar. And we'll,
Calendar?
Yep.
So we're proceeding with the pound.
Okay. And then I would,
Question, I assume that prom would fall in the guidelines of the basically the building metrics we have now, assuming everything stays below where we're at in buildings, it will proceed like normal then, with the mitigation.
with the mitigation.
Or mitigation strategies, pending any changes that occur in the next 45 days.
I'll reach out to, so before I came, I also reached out to Deb Stone and got information there. So in the next couple of weeks, I'll reach out again and clean up the idea and the mitigation strategies, and then I'll bring it back in April.
Reassuring parents tonight that, yes, there is.
There is a promise on the schedule.
Right now, there is a problem.
On the schedule.
Okay. So, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now let's move on to the fiscal year 22 budget estimate, public hearing notice.
So we just need to set the hearing for April 12th at 6:30 for our fiscal year 22 budget. So we just need to set the time and place. And so we'd be back here again, right?
Yep, April 12th, here at 6:30. Next regular board meeting.
Okay. Is there a motion here? Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's moved by Mr. Stevens, seconded by Mr. Pritchard, to set the fiscal year 22 budget estimate public hearing as of April 12th, 2021, 6:30 p.m. here in this building. Any further discussion? All in favor of saying aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next is the fiscal year 21 budget amendment public hearing.
Okay, so this is another one that requires a hearing when we want to do a budget amendment, and we need to set the budget amendment for, again, the next regularly scheduled meeting on April 12th, 6:30, and it's for this year's budget amendment.
Okay, is there a motion? Is there a second? Second. Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Stevens, seconded by Mr. Pritchard, to set the fiscal year 21 budget amendment public hearing on April 12th, 2021, 6:30 p.m. in this building. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. I'm saying in the building, as we're not sure if we're meeting here in the cafeteria or in the auditorium or where. Next is the flexible spending account public hearing.
Third time's the charm. We have another one that we need to have a public hearing about. This one is related to a resolution to expend funds from the district's flexibility account for any general fund purpose. And the goal for that would be to move $120,000 from the homeschool assistance program into the general fund. So the hearing would be set next regularly scheduled board meeting on April 12th, 6:30 as well.
Okay. Question. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Second. Okay. Is the move and seconded by the same two people to set the flexible public hearing on April 12th, 2021, 6:30 in this building. Do I hear any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next. Fiscal year 22 budget guarantee.
So for a budget guarantee, we have to, as a board, pass a resolution for the budget guarantee by April 15th of every year. So we would need to pass the budget guarantee as well, since we had a decrease in enrollment this year. That allows us to receive 101% of our previous budget. So that would be the recommendation that we do that.
Okay, is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, this is moved by Mr. Elton, seconded by Dr. Nystrom, to hold a fiscal year 22 budget guarantee hearing on July. Okay.
Nope, it's just passing the resolution.
Just passing the resolution.
No hearing.
No hearing on this one.
Okay, good. Pass the resolution. Yeah, hearing no further discussion, roll call vote.
Elton,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Teven,
Yeah.
Nystrom,
Yes.
Millhouse,
Yes. Okay. Snow days.
So the snow days, the days that we had this year would put our last day, if we simply make up the snow days that occurred, would be June 8th. And so in deciding that, I know typically we would just make those days up. This is an unusual year, to say the very least. So I just wanted to share with board members that if it were decided that we would be able to forgive the 2 days of 7th and 8th for students, but still have staff present for professional development, what that would mean. I just wanted to be able to share that information with you so that as we decide what our last day will be, you have all that information. So currently, our original calendar for this year had 1,136 hours. We're required to have 1,000 hours. When you take into consideration our late starts and early releases, which we don't typically make up, that would put us at 1,026 hours. If we were to convert 2 of the 3 snow days to professional development days, that would put us at 1,113 hours, still above the 1,080. Some items of potential professional development that we see a need for from an administrative point of view would be the following. We have a numeracy project that our students in K4, 5-8 math teachers and K12 special education teachers are working on a numeracy project. We have 6 through 12 science materials implementation, training for the newly adopted science materials that are currently under review would be something that we would be able to do. Continuation of our standards reference grading staff development, as well as collaborative professional learning community team time. And what I would say is that this is not something that I take lightly. I'm always for making up all the school days. School is very, very important. I just see that this year has been very difficult in getting the professional development with our staff the way that we would like to. And it would provide us an opportunity to do that, would still provide us with the hours that are necessary. And honestly, some of the camps also are running in conflict to the last 2 days of school as well. So it's maybe a one-time non-precedent setting proposal that I'm offering up as an option. But we will make it up through June 8th if you'd like, but we have a need that could be filled if we were able to use those 2 days as professional development days and not school days.
First question I have is, these kids already lost several hours in the fall because we want to do professional development to get the return to learn mode, everything going.
We pushed it back a week.
Push
They
things
didn't
back.
lose
So we
days.
pushed back
We just
the-
moved it back.
Did we move back the days?
Yeah,
We didn't move back.
yeah. So they didn't lose any days. We simply shifted the calendar. Yeah.
So the second question though is how much our current students can benefit from this calendar year from the professional learning.
All but the senior class. Because of the things that we have in place, the senior class will be gone, so they wouldn't benefit from that, but all the other grade levels would benefit from the numeracy project, science material implementation, standards reference grading pieces, as well as our collaboration time for the teachers to unpack standards that weren't able to get unpacked this year, prepping for new courses. It just allows them to get started on the things that they could then work through the summer, because we all know teachers, whether they're on contract or not, work a lot during the summer, and it would provide them with that opportunity to have the background professional development prior to going into the summer. But
How far are you along with having the new science standards in place? Like 8%, 9%?
for 6 through 12,
Yeah.
they've done the science. Well, I'll let Jill answer that, but I know that we've already had those conversations. So Jill, do you want to speak to exactly where we are?
Sure. 6 through 12 would be fully implemented as far as unpacked, though during their review, 612 right now is currently reviewing materials, and they have really kind of uncovered, and they're putting some focus on using the DE has some impact rubrics that have been helpful for us to kind of look at our implementation 3-dimensionally. We feel like our content wise, we'd say we're fully implemented with those standards, but as far as the 3-dimensional NGSS teaching, we're looking closely at our implementation and looking at materials that will help us to do that better. Well, I should say 512 with that. Because of the way standards are aligned, we're really reviewing materials 612 right now, and then we'll do K5. K through 4, I would say we are not fully implemented yet with those science standards. The time to unpack those is really what's necessary, and we're hoping to get a good start. We've had some talks about taking the April 2nd full day of PD to have K4 together to begin unpacking those and maybe go beyond just the general content topics that at each grade level and really get them unpacked. But that team needs some time to dive into materials and how they've implemented the standards as well. And that time just hasn't been there for our collaborative teams yet this school year.
On the other hand, you want to hire 2 science, 2 high school science teachers, and I would be able to be a part of them from the 512.
But they're in place already, so if they're now.
Yeah.
How much we have to. develop.
And we have other things that we could cover, but the things that I shared with you are the things that we know absolutely need to occur. There are other items that we absolutely could add to the list, but these are the items that are the highest priority for us right now, or those 4 items that I listed.
And I know when I looked at the reviews, they talked about the points we saw all of us. So
You said that, how many hours do we have right now? If we got the kids in the school,
We'd have 1,126 if we go through June 8th.
okay.
If we go through June 4th, we'd have 1,113.
So 30 hours more than we use. What do we need, Penny?
We have to have 1080. And most schools won't even reach their 1080 if what those that did their hybrid situations. I mean, I'm going based on what we normally have to meet that requirement.
This conversation comes up every year, and every year the recommendation is to make them up, and every year the board approves that, and then every year the board takes each of the teachers for approving that. It's like, I think with as well as we've done this year, and the number of hours that we've been in school compared to other districts, I mean, we're far in excess of a lot of districts in our state. I'd really like to get teachers and kids out of here as early as possible as kind of a reward for their sacrifice and the work that they did. So I'm all in favor of cutting the year short as long as we maintain the needed hours. If there's anything we can do to make it less stressful for the teachers, we'll get them out early, and support staff also. I do for that, but I'm definitely in favor of what you're proposing.
I mean, the teachers would still be coming. I'll make that very clear. Like, they're still coming for this staff development because that's what we desperately need is that time, and they're under contract. But yeah, that's what we're asking for, is to have those last 2 days, not just for it to end on June 4th.
Contract for hours or days,
Days.
Teachers are under days,
but there's required instruction hours.
correct?
What and what we do, professional development, what is our attendance at? Like the teachers stuff?
Have you guys ever done professional development at the end? I don't know what you guys have had. I would imagine it'd be close to
Normally other
100%.
school years just at the
I mean,
last
I
day
would
of
think it
school.
would be close to 100%, barring someone being pretty ill, but yeah.
I can speak up on that.
Thank you, Jill.
Yes, we have at times had one day at the end that we've had for professional development, well attended. And I know some of the things on that list are things that they found very helpful, collaborative teams meeting to kind of wrap up the year and kind of get settled on what's their timeline to start the school year. We've also done some things before years past when we were under different designations with SINA. We'd have some additional days of professional learning, and we tack those on to the end of the year for staff, and found that was helpful if we just, kind of continued the year and the kids ended on one day and we had 2 extra days of learning for staff. Some of those items on that list are ones that they really need to happen early on in summer for teachers to be set before they come back, throwing all of that at teachers in the first 4 required days as they come back to school, when they're getting their classroom ready and getting set up and buildings are getting ready for the school year, is just too much. So those are days that are professional development topics that, if not added in that June 7th and 8th, that would still be contract days for teachers. We'd be looking at what are days in the summer that we can try to book that as professional learning. That just becomes difficult because those teachers need a summer. And so we're looking at, what are the best times then to have them come in off contract to do some of that learning or some of that time? And how can we compensate them for that? We can get creative in that, but it's always hard to get everybody back when they're off contract and not overwhelm them when they really do deserve that break too.
7th and 8th on Monday, Tuesday.
They're a Monday, Tuesday, yes.
I would move that we use the last 2 days of the semester to professional development.
Okay, the move on Mr. Stevens, second by Mr. Elton, to move to first, to have June 7th or June 8th, professional development days only. Last day would be
June 4th.
June 4th. Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passed unanimously. Activities and athletics back on the schedule.
So this is simply making sure that we had the 8th grade baseball position that we discussed last time added into the stipends. So that's just the schedule with the positions all represented.
Our intent was only to hire a head, but instead of just adding a head and not an assistant, we added both in there. So just to make it consistent.
We are not planning to hire an assistant,
No.
though.
Just to keep that in there.
Okay. Any discussion? Now entertain a motion to approve the sports special second.
I would move to propose the sports and special second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. It is the move by Mr. Elton, seconded by Mr. Marshall, to approve the proposed sports and special stipends as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next, the E-rate bid.
Mr. Lewis is going to speak to the E-rate bids.
Bog, are you there? And Bog.
And Bog, okay. Or you can speak to it.
Maybe. So E-rate is just another one of those funding sources that we get. There's category 1 and 2. 1 is for our internet and 2 is for upgrades for software and equipment. We sent out a bid this year. We only got 2 responses. One of them is from Oxen Technologies. This company has done previous work for us for different upgrades. The other one was a different vendor that we have never used. There is a considerably different dollar amount for those 2 bids. But the smaller bid is not going to do what we need the other bid to do. You have anything to say to that, Bog?
Yeah, the low bid is not on spec. It's some no name routing equipment instead of the quality HP stuff that we've been getting.
So we recommend approving the Oxen bid for $111,973. This would be from our Pebble dollars that we allocate for technology upgrades, and we would hopefully receive those funds back from E-rate. So.
And this is about the same as what we end up with most years.
We get so much over a 5-year period, and then we just spend it down as projects as we go as we need. So this is for the middle school, right, Bog?
Yeah, to replace the old switches in the middle school and the high school. I've been piecemealing it out, so I don't have to present you with a $500,000 price tag. Been doing little pieces as I can.
I think last year or the year before was an $88,000 one, so we're doing them as chunks.
Okay. Questions from board members? Hearing no further discussion, is there a motion on the floor?
I move to approve the Oxy technology bid.
Okay, it's moved by Mrs. Pritchard, seconded by Mrs. Stevens, to approve the Oxen technology bid for just over $110,000. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. And next is the Shared Transportation Director with United School District.
This is simply a renewal of the sharing agreement that currently exists with United for a shared transportation director. So there are no changes to the sharing agreement. When Dr. Dodge and I spoke, she had no alterations to the agreement. So this is simply a renewal of that sharing agreement.
And I'm assuming this is Mr. Kennedy's position. And
Yes.
He's been spoken, and that he's okay with this.
He definitely would like the sharing agreement to continue.
Okay.
Yes.
And then to accept the sharing agreement with United
Second.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Ms. Stevens, seconded by Dr. Nystrom to approve the transportation sharing agreement with the United School District. As presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Same. The motion passes unanimously. And now we go back to the FAST assessment results.
Yes, I'm going to let Dr. James speak to the assessment document that you have in your board docs. She can provide a summary of those.
You can share your screen.
Okay, I will do that. That makes it easier. All right, I think I'm sharing.
Yep.
Wonderful. Okay. I have tried to compile for us a comparison of our students' winter FAST data that allows you to compare it to the same students in fall. And then there is a state comparison given for you as well. So in the chart provided, and this is only for reading. I have FAST math data as well, but reading is required statewide, and the state has a system for that that gives us that comparative data. Math is still an implementation statewide, so we can only compare our own learners on that. But the kind of light pinkish column is the Iowa percent of students meeting benchmark, and then our own students are further to the right. So we have transitional kindergartens. Some districts do, some districts don't. Those get kind of lumped all together in the statewide data. So that's why statewide, the comparison is just for K in general at 67% of students meeting benchmark. But as you look across, you can see our own kindergartners and their comparison in winter. Or on the FAST early reading measures. And then the rest of the chart kind of shows you first grade, the statewide percent of learners at benchmark compared to our own learners in fall and winter. And then when we get to second grade and above, we give two assessments. We give one that assesses students' accuracy and fluency, the CVMR, and that's the first column. And then our first set of columns. And then the second set of columns is an A reading. It's an adaptive measure that's really a broad measure that also measures some fluency and accuracy phonics and word attack skills, but also includes vocabulary and comprehension. And just because I was curious, and I figured that you may be as well, in our own data with the CBMR data, the first reading test, we went ahead and did some, we hope they're fairly accurate, but we did some hand calculations of our online learners in comparison to our on-site learners. Of course, they're all our learners, but we're curious how both of those models are working. And some groups are awfully small numbers, but just so that you could see at every grade level, the first number shows you the percent of learners that met the benchmark. So for instance, in third grade in winter, 73% of our learners met the benchmark. On the CBMR, statewide, 65% of learners did. And for us, 80% of our online learners met that target and 72% of our on-site learners. Fourth grade, it was kind of flipped where our on-site learners performed a little bit better than the online learners. And again, we just remind you that those online learners are a small cohort, and at every grade level, there's not a lot of kids in there. So because of that small n size, I would just kind of take the online number with a grain of salt, but they're all our learners, and we're continuing to find ways to meet their needs both on-site and online. So the first page is the fast reading data. And we see growth in every grade level. Some of the grade levels that didn't see as much growth in CBMR, we are pleased with the growth in the kids' accuracy scores. And we know they need to be accurate at the word level before they can apply that to larger sentences and passages. And so that growth is promising. And then on the second page, we have our fast math data. And this data is data that I'd say our teams are really just getting good at digging into. We've had some of our first math data days based on this data at Page and Lincoln, where Annie Carpenter came in and helped lead our teams in kind of dissecting the data that we have and planning some next steps. That numeracy project PD that we talk about is a piece that we've been trying to implement small parts of. Some instructional coaches have been to that training, and we're seeing great things happen with those interventions with kids, where we take their fast data and then we use that numeracy project to determine what individual or groups may need next. But getting all that information to our teachers would be so helpful for us to use this data a little bit better as we think about the progression of learning in math, like we do with the progression of learning in reading. I'll let you browse the chart and then I'll take questions.
Yes, I would like to ask, in math, we don't seem to do quite as well with increasing as we do with reading. And one of the big ones that sticks out to me is the third grade. There's something that changed there, something because third grade, if you look at both columns there, we went from about 70% down to about 55%. Between fall and winter. In fifth grade, we went down between fall and winter. Eighth grade too. Is there something that is our curriculum or something out of alignment with the state curriculum or something? How can we explain those numbers?
Well, I don't know that I can explain them necessarily, but I can say that as teams did their data days, particularly the middle school team I think had theirs last week. And as they dug deeper into the data, they kind of pulled out their online learners versus their on-site and found some differences there. And then they started looking at growth in their learners. And there were several learners they saw that they made great growth, but with where the benchmarks moved in from fall to winter, they had, they were right there close to the benchmark, but they just didn't make it. And I think that's where, again, we need some tools for our staff to dig in a little bit deeper to this data, because it is a broad measure, because there are so many pieces of numeracy. We've gotten a lot better in literacy about thinking about the progression and learning, what a student needs next based on this data. And the fast math is one we've only given for a few years, but we haven't necessarily had the tools to think about that progression. And the numeracy project materials that AEA and Annie Carpenter is beginning to lead our teams with, we think is really a key piece for us to determining what might be missing as students develop number sense, and what that progression looks like from kindergarten through eighth grade is what the numeracy project focuses on, which would be really helpful for us. And it's aligned to this assessment. So it can help us to determine if this is where our students are, here's where they may need to go next, and dig in kid by kid. And so I can't answer for you tonight exactly what it might be missing in our data, but I can say that our teams have seen the same things and are looking for the new learning that they need to be able to do that next, those next steps for our kids.
Hey, Jill, that, on the reading one that says Iowa percent at benchmark, the one that's kind of pink color.
Yes.
I know you guys do this a couple times, 2-3 times a year. Are those benchmarks for each round that you give this test, or is that like the end of the year benchmark? Can you explain what that, how you compare that Iowa percent benchmark to like the fall and then to the winter?
Sure. I ran out of room on my chart to explain it well, and I was trying to get it all on one page, so I'm glad that you asked. I was trying to make it say Iowa winter 2021 percentage benchmark, and I just didn't have enough room. So no, that is how all Iowa kids at a grade level performed in winter of 2021. So that should only be compared to our winter column. And admittedly, each district is allowed to choose which measure they want to be their default measure that's reported to the state. Most districts report the first columns that we have there, that's the early reading and CBMR, although some choose to use the A reading. We use the early reading and CBMR. So when I say the statewide percentage benchmark, it could be either one, since districts get to choose. So when I, like, for instance, if I look at second grade and the state was at 59%, and our second graders in winter were at 56% on the CBMR, and they were at 61 on the A reading. I can't tell you for sure that 59% from the state of Iowa, how many of those learners took which assessment. I just know that statewide, 59% of Iowa students met the benchmark in second grade in winter.
So when you get the fast results at home, and they have numbers on them, and then do those benchmarks move every time? I mean, like if you're, I don't know what the numbers are, but if Ethan is 50, and it says the benchmark for second grade is 75, is that the current benchmark for those second graders? Or do those move, or do those state benchmarks stay the same?
So on my chart, I have the percent that have met those. When you as a parent get the information at home, you're saying this is the score that is considered the benchmark for the assessment at first grade or second grade. And then this is how your child performed. So yes, they do move each time. So what's expected for benchmark for a student in fall is lower than what would be expected for them in second grade or in winter and spring. And same goes as they move across grade levels. So the benchmarks move up as we expect kids to progress in their learning. And so what you see at home isn't necessarily, wouldn't necessarily match what's on this chart as far as the percentage I present to you, what percent of our kids have met those benchmarks. And you probably also get a score if you have lower learners that breaks down, how did your child do on letter sounds or beginning sounds and word segmenting, because all of those subtests are important pieces of your child's progression in literacy skills. I would say overall, as our teams have dug into the data, we're really pleased with the growth of our students. Again, we attribute a lot of this to being on site and being able to be there with our learners. And there are some places many places on the chart where we see that we had students, a higher percentage of our students meeting benchmark. And in general, we really feel like a lot of that is attributed to being in school with our kids and being able to provide them interventions and the supports that they need. As always, we need more time with those learners, and we want to see their continued growth, but this is where we are in winter. And again, we dig in from here and say, what's the next steps before we screen in spring. I do know that Scott and Brad and Autumn are on as well. If you have any questions about a particular grade level, they may have some more information about what their teams have done as they've looked at the data. But I also know that they may get pulled into a parent conference at any time. So if you could be crickets if we asked for their assistance too.
I think Scott is on. And Autumn.
Any further questions? Hearing no further questions, we'll move on to.
My report is simply first and foremost thanking the community for going out and voting on March 2nd and supporting what I believe to be not only a need for our school community, but our community at large will be able to better meet the needs daycare-wise of our community with a new building. So I just want to thank everyone for going out and voting. If you hadn't had an opportunity to see our FFA students that made state recently, as well as we have had a number of fine arts performances recently that were fantastic. Our students did a wonderful job, whether it was orchestra, band, or the musical recently. Just encourage everyone who has an opportunity, whether it's via online or being able to come in person, to support our students. We appreciate that. I know it means a lot to our students to have that support. It had been almost a year to the day with some of those events. So just really exciting to see some of that come to fruition, and just thanking everyone for supporting our students, because they certainly have gone through a lot, just as we have as adults. And I can't imagine that, the perseverance that was necessary for them this year. They deserve a lot of credit. So I just wanted to publicly thank the students and the parents for that support. So that's all I have for the superintendent's report.
Okay. Anyone have anything else? Otherwise, we'll adjourn. I believe we have meetings. I will entertain a motion for adjournment. Moved by Mr. Alpha, secondary by Mr. Stevens, adjourned. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Both nays.